we will open the floor to questions. Our communications and marketing team will help facilitate the questions. And please fire away.
Good morning, everybody. This is John Quinlan from Communications and Marketing. If you have a question, just type it in the chat and we'll try to get to everybody's questions in the next half hour or so. The first question I can actually answer. Quite a few people asked whether this is going to be available following the event, a recording of this presentation, as well as the Q&A. And yes, the answer is yes. Our team will post the Q&A and the recording of this on our website probably later today or tomorrow morning. So very shortly after this call, that information will be available. The next question is, are there opportunities for job order contracting for design engineers?
Yeah, and I think I addressed that question in my comments. You know, JOCS is a construction contractor based program. So the professional service side, it really is not the venue for that. I mean, Dazny has, you know, a number of term contracts with architects and engineers and specialty contractors. So you might want to look at those, but JOCS is really more for the contractors.
Got it. Thank you.
And also, sorry to interrupt, John, but coming up late spring, early summer, Dasney will be releasing its term, as Wayne just mentioned, its term AE contracts for both upstate and downstate. This will be for licensed architects and engineers. So please keep your eye open for that procurement, but it will be late spring, early summer that procurement will be released by Dasney.
Great, thank you, Michael. A few folks asked about performance bonds. Can you speak to that? Is a performance bond needed depending on the capacity of the SOW? Anybody?
Payment performance bonds are required. Well, first, let's put it this way. If you're bidding as a prime, you have to be bondable. Now, bonds are required if either the value of the work is 100,000 or more, or in the case of a term contract, and the JOCS contracts are term contracts, if the aggregate awards to that contractor equal or exceed 100,000, then a bond is required. So let's say you're a GC, you're brand new, and we just gave you an $80,000, project. Then per state law, a bond would not be required. If we now give you a second, 80,000 or even a 30,000, you're now over $100,000. So that $100,000 threshold is what triggers the requirement for a bond. So you need to be bondable, payment and performance bonds. And, when the amount of work hits that $100,000 threshold, that's when moving forward, each and every job order will require that. So that means if we give you a $30,000, project, once you've hit the $100,000 threshold, even at $30,000, you're still going to have to provide a bond. So that's why it's important when you are bidding to give us that letter that shows that you are bondable and what your bonding capacity is.
Perfect. Thank you, Wayne. Will there be any need for engineering or special inspectors?
Depends on the project.
Okay.
As I said, this is a term contract. If I award a contract to you tomorrow for GC work in New York City, I cannot tell you what projects I'm going to give you over the course of the year.
Got it. How do I access the catalog as a potential bidder?
When the contract solicitations are put out to bid, all of that gets posted to Dasney's website. I think in the past, the catalog was posted the day of, or maybe the day after the pre-bid meeting, but all of the information gets posted to Dasney's website. And just to reiterate what Michael Clay said, Dasney's website is an invaluable resource to contractors, professional service, everyone, because everything that we procure is posted to our website.
Yeah, and if an attendee attends the pre-bid meeting, that information is provided to them at the where they can access that information also.
Great. This is a question about the regions. Where do Yonkers and Westchester County fall? Are they part of Region 1?
No, as I said, Region 1 is only the 5 boroughs of New York City. Yonkers is a separate city. If you go to Dasney's website, I believe there is an informational flyer for jocks.
Yep.
That is posted, and part of that flyer is a map and a chart. So I believe Yonkers would be in Region 3. It used to be Region 2A, but we renumbered the regions. So that would be Region 3.
Great, thank you, Wayne. Here's a question about an MWBE being awarded a contract as a prime. So if we're a WBE and we get awarded a contract as a prime, what is our obligation in hiring other minority firms?
Michael?
There are goals on the contract. I think you heard Wayne indicate that. And as a New York State certified MWBE, you would receive credit by virtue of you being a certified M or a certified W. Whatever you are not, we would expect you to subcontract out. So what do I mean? If I'm a certified MBE, then we would expect you to outsource to a WBE subcontractor or supplier. If it's reverse, you're a WBE certified firm, we would expect you to solicit and utilize New York State certified MBE contractors or suppliers.
And SDVs.
And SDVOBs, excuse me. We certainly do not want to leave out SDVOBs.
How about working as a joint venture? Is it possible to work as a joint venture with another firm or bring on a sub in areas where an expert is needed?
Absolutely. We had in not the most recent round, but the last round, we had a bid, a successful bid, I might add, that was a joint venture. And we also have a couple of instances where, and this actually goes back to the MWBE question, we have non-MWBE primes that were running short of their goals, and the solution they proposed to Dazny, which was perfectly reasonable, is basically to bring on a consistent MWBE firm as basically not so much a joint venture, but part of their team, and that some job orders they would basically subcontract in large part to that firm, and they would sort of act as a construction manager. And there are different ways of doing that. But that certainly is something that is acceptable. It needs to be workable for you. It can't just be something that's on paper to make it look good. It needs to work. And we need to see that there is a good working relationship between the firms.
Also, Wayne, let me just add, and John, understand, as Wayne indicated, on the bonding issue, that you must, any work authorizations, $100,000 or more will require a bond. Because you are a joint venture, you are creating one firm, another firm, and then there is a third firm. So that third firm would need to be able to be bonded if indeed that joint venture is bidding on the jock's work. So just keep that in mind. So in other words, if Wayne and I are going to joint venture, then who is the bonding information going to be in the name of? Is it in Wayne's name, or is it my name, or is it in a third entity's name that we've created? So just keep that in mind, because that does make a difference.
Yeah, and to that point, we use the term joint venture rather loosely. And in some cases, we're really not talking about a formal joint venture where an independent legal entity is created. In many cases, what's happening is you're teaming. You're not, you're keeping your individual identities, but you're saying on this project or for this contract, we are working together. So I would say be mindful, be careful of the terminology. And as Michael said, if you are forming an actual joint venture, I worked on a project many, I was going to say years ago, it's more than a quarter century ago, where it was literally a quad venture. There were 4 firms that came together to work on a $500 million construction project. They formed a separate legal entity. On the other hand, if I'm a GC and I'm working with another GC on this project, we're simply saying we're working on it. We each have to qualify, and we probably each need to be bondable, but we're not creating a legal entity that singularly is now taking over the project. So just be mindful of how you communicate it and what you really mean.
Great, thank you. If I'm a subcontractor and I want to pursue a specific job scope like electrical, should I contact the GC who was awarded the job contract, or do I contact Dazny directly?
Well, I would say two things. If you are an electrical contractor and you're interested in the JOC program and you are bondable, you might want to consider pursuing, being the electrical prime, going after that contract as opposed to, pursuing the subcontract opportunities. The other opportunity, which Mike didn't mention, is as the job orders are issued to the primes, they get posted to a section of the Dasney website once again.
Yes.
And so you can look at that website and see what are the open job orders, and if there's an electrical work, and you would contact not Dasney, but you would contact the JOC prime that has that project directly and say, hey, I see you've got, work at Brooklyn College. It's a renovation. It includes electrical. I'm an electrical contractor. I'm interested.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions wondering how to join the Dazny business registry, how to access the bid package. Again, all of that information is available at www.dasney.org. So really, there's a wealth of information for folks on our website. Let's see here. How do we obtain the bid package? We just talked about that. The bid package will be posted to the website as well. Is there somewhere that smaller firms can find a list of the primes that will be bidding as prime? So again, we just sort of addressed that. That information is all posted on the Dazny website.
Right.
Well, so, John, can I just jump in for a second?
Yes,
Some
of
time
course.
ago, we, well, I should say, I facilitated a listing, and this not only applies to JOC, but it applies to any contract, construction contract Dazny is bidding on. You go over to RFPs or construction opportunities, and you will see something called interested bidders and also interested sub-suppliers. So if you are an MWBE or service-disabled veteran-owned business and you, again, only do electrical or painting or interiors or whatever it may be, then what you would do is you could click on that opportunity, and there's a one-page form in which you could complete online and indicate that you are interested in participating as a plumber, electrician, drywall painter on that particular opportunity. Conversely, we also list who are the bidders, so that, and it includes their name, email, phone number, contact person, so you can, prior to the bid opening, reach out to these firms and indicate your interest in participating as a sub. There's no charge for this, but we've had this on our website now going on probably about 10 or 12 years. It's extremely helpful and allows you to market yourself to the prime bidders, and it also helps the prime bidders find MWBEs and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses in particular trades.
Great. Michael, do you know if the commissioning term contract will be posted at the same time as the AE terms, or is that separate in late spring?
That will probably be separate,
Okay.
and because we do a separate procurement for commissioning.
Perfect. And are there any contracts in the area of AV or IT as part of the JOCS program?
No. There may be a project that includes AV or IT, and for that, the prime would do outreach for that specific trade, but we don't have standalone contracts for those.
Great. This is kind of a broad question, but good clarity for everybody. Are Dazny projects only for Suny, Cuny, and state agencies?
Dazny projects are for any of Dazny's clients. So our clients include Suny, Cuny, Office of Mental Health, some of the courts, I believe some of the libraries. I mean, if you go to our website, a list of them. So our projects are only for our clients, yes, but our clients are not limited to Suny and Cuny. Suny happens to be Dasney's first client, and Cuny happens to be currently our largest client. But I think we have about a dozen currently, don't we, Mike?
Exactly.
Thank you, Wayne. We have not yet submitted bid pricing for a jock. When the upcoming bid opportunities are released, how can we receive assistance in formulating our bid pricing?
Well, as I mentioned, there will be a pre-bid meeting. The date of the pre-bid meeting will be posted as part of the ad. And in that pre-bid meeting, Renee, who you've just met, will go into much more detail on how to do that. And the PowerPoint that we use for that presentation and the session itself will be recorded, and those, the PowerPoint and the recording then are posted to Dasney's website, as part of that contract solicitation for your future reference. So if you want to go back and say, what did they say about how to do that? You can go back to the presentation, you can go back to the recording and listen to it one more time.
Yeah, and just keep in mind the pre-bids, even if you're not interested as a prime, it's a great avenue to, when we were having in-person pre-bids, we were very limited to space. With these virtual pre-bids, if you attend, you get all of this great information, and you can work just like Michael said. It's a great place to market and find out who's actually bidding these contracts or who's being awarded these contracts. So just great information at these pre-bids. Recommend that you attend, even if you're not thinking as a prime, to attend the pre-bid to get all that information.
Yeah, I mean, after the pre-bid meeting, one of the documents that gets circulated is a list of all of the attendees. So that's an excellent, networking tool to see who else is there. So as Renee said, if you are not interested in, being the prime, but you're interested in exploring a subcontracting, or, we always advise the primes that they need to think about who their team is, because just because you're a GC, that doesn't mean you won't get work. A project that involves, electrical, plumbing, everything is abatement. I think you can't make a bagel without abatement. So, you need to think about that. And so this is a good way to say, well, who else attended that pre-bid who's interested in the program?
Renee, this is for you. How can vendors submit pricing to Gordian to get on their product list?
You cannot. These are not Gordian contracts. These are Dazny contracts. So Gordian doesn't award any contracts. We don't put out any solicitations. We're here supporting Dazny. We're their consultant, basically. So for any of our clients we deal with, whether it's Dazny, State University Construction Fund, DOT, all of those solicitations go directly to them, not to Gordian.
Great, thank you. I think that's about it. There's a couple of questions about payment, like typical turnaround times for MWBE firms participating in the JOCS program. I don't know if Wayne, you can speak to that at all in terms of how long it takes a firm to actually receive payment.
Well, I mean, the payment cycle, whether you're an MBE or not, is pretty much the same. And Dasney is known among state agencies for paying rather quickly. I think we pay within we pay on a monthly basis, and I think we pay within, is it 10 days, Michael?
Yes, it's a 2-week turnaround. So if someone submits a requisition, again, presupposing your requisition package is complete, that's certified payrolls and other information, it's submitted by your project, the Dazny project manager. It takes 2 weeks for us to turn around that invoice. So if you submit it on the 15th, a check goes out on the 30th.
And I can tell you, for all the attendees at this meeting, Gordian's in the same position as you. We have a contract with Dazny, and we submit payments to Dazny. And I can tell you from experience, what they're speaking is truth. They pay us within 10, as long as our payment requisition is approved and has everything in it, we're paid within that period. So you should have a lot of comfort in that, that if you become in this relationship and you're submitting your documentation, you're going to get paid, within a time frame that they speak of.
Yeah, but Renee and Michael both said something that's important. That is, if your payment requisition is complete and accurate. So if you submit a payment requisition that's supposed to have supporting documents that are not there, if it's incomplete, if something isn't signed, it's supposed to be signed, it's going to get kicked back. So assuming you submit a payment requisition that's complete and accurate, it gets turned around, pretty quickly. And I will also say that the same speed with which Dasney pays you, we expect you to pay your subs and suppliers. And particularly on the MWBE SDVOB side, we monitor that. I mean, through the Opportunity Programs Group, I mean, that is monitored very closely.
Very closely.
Yeah, we don't have any more comments coming in, but we do have a comment on what you're speaking about. It says, Dasney is great, especially as a sub. They'll let you know when the prime was paid, so you can make sure you got paid. So I think that's kind of a good wrap on that payment topic. And that's all the questions that have come in. So unless anybody has anything further, I think we've addressed most of the questions that we've received.
I have one question. Sorry if you might have already gone over it. I'm curious about the DAS trainings. How do you initiate or start like signing up for a training?
Are you talking about training for using the Gordian software and catalogs?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you are awarded a contract, then Renee will contact you directly. So it's not training that's available to, anyone who is interested per se. It's training that's provided to the firms we award job contracts. So the prerequisite is to be awarded the contract.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if we're printing and promotional company, and we provide a lot of different kinds of signage for companies, and we work a lot with construction companies and all, but when you go on your website or your portals, everything's for things that we don't do, but we know a lot of those companies that are partnering with you can use and benefit from our services. So how do we get them to learn more about us and all the products and services we do?
Well, I mean, as Renee said, it's similar to, subcontractors. If you sign up for, let's say, the pre-bid, not because you want to bid as a, prime, but because you want to know who's interested, you will get that list of participants and their contact information. And as I said, it's a great networking tool. You can reach out to them and say, hey, you're a GC or whatever. I know GCs, you have to provide, signage for X, Y, and Z, and I can help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you also can reach out to our internal communications team because we manage a lot of that as well. So it's signage and the marketing collateral piece of things. So
who would that be? Who could I?
You can reach out to me, John Quinlan. It's JQUINLAN at Dazny, and we can talk after this more about that in detail.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want
At
to
Dasney.org. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just one more thing. So similar to what Dazny was speaking of on their website, all this great information. Like Wayne said, Gordian only gets involved with the contractors who they award contracts with. But if you want information about job order contracting, you can go to Dazny's website. You can also go to Gordian's website. There is a ton of great information about job order contracting. So again, if you want some general information about what it is or, who we provide services to, all that great information is on our site also.
Good morning.
Is Gordian, I have a question. Is Gordian a construction manager, a project manager, just software provider?
We are consultants for our clients. So we implement their job order contracting program. So Dasney's been doing job order contracting for 20 years. Gordian helped them implement that program, and we are there for them to support them in their program. So again, we're not construction managers in a sense. We are consultants, but for our clients, we do, again, for our clients like Dazny or State University Construction Fund or DOT, we provide project management services, we provide construction management services, but only directly to our client.
May I please
But
ask
the-
a question?
Please, go ahead.
This is Ingrid Bonet. I've done job work before, and one of the things that are not permitted are walkthroughs. I'm assuming it's because of the turnaround for the project, for the work to be done. But when I did that work, some of those projects presented a problem because what you saw on the drawings when you went to the site, they were much bigger. And then once you sign a contract, they expect you to stick to that contract. So how do you guys maneuver this? I mean,
Yeah, so who did you do job work for?
I did it with I did sandy work in Queens. I can't,
Was it with Dasney or some other agency?
some other agency. It wasn't Dasney.
So with Dasney, you are expected to go to a site meeting. There's what we call a joint scope meeting. And until we don't even give you the detailed scope of work and the request for pricing until after the site visit. Because
Perfect.
we want you to take the documents, go with our people to the site. And even during COVID, we've worked out ways to have those site visits. So you are pricing it based on the documents and based on having visited the site. And in many cases, after visiting the site, the documents get massaged a bit for exactly the reasons you pointed out.
Awesome. I like to hear that. Thank you.
One thing
Hi,
that
I have a
did
question
hear
now.
you say is that you're not privy to when these meetings are taking place. And this is why it's really important to build that relationship with, if you're not a prime, to build those relationships with Dasney's primes so you are knowledgeable about their workload and work they're being given. So like Wayne said, we don't know what the work is. We don't know when the work is coming. So, Dasney gets a request from a client. The next day they're calling the contractor. So if you have that relationship with their prime, the next day you're probably getting that call saying, hey, we got an electrical job. Hey, we got an asbestos job. We'd like you to attend the joint scope meeting with us as our sub or supplier. So again, Dazny is very proactive in making sure anybody and everybody who is relative to their projects is at those meetings. So very important.
Hi, I have a question. And I sent this in the chat, but it wasn't answered. So I understand that, with the job contractors, they have an obligation to meet, usually about anywhere from 25 to 35% of their goal with the MWBE. So I've made a list on my own of each job contractor, prime contractor within my regions that we currently bid on. I've called each of these contractors over the last, I want to say 6 months. Periodically, every other week, I've given them a call, asked them scope of works that they have, things that they have going on. I've found company information, websites, hierarchies, things of that nature. So I've mapped out their companies. I'm being told by a lot of these companies that, oh, the scope of our work does not require these goals. Or I'm being told, oh, well, for you to work with us, we need union shops. We need you to sign an affidavit confirming we will even if you're not a union shop, that you'll use union shop or utilize union shop workers, that will pull out multiple insurances that are out of our scope, that are beyond what our business can handle. And it's beyond the current scope of that job. So what is Dazny doing to help out true MWBE subs like us to actually get this work? Especially since, these goals are there. How do you guys moderate that? Because I'm sure some of these contractors are going, hey, look, we couldn't find MWBE, but we got this guy, we worked with him before. How are you guys monitoring that? Because I have a list of over 60 contractors I've called, and each one of them has given me an excuse, this, that, or the other, or a loophole that you have to jump through to work with them, even on the Dazny projects.
So let me take a shot at this, Wayne, and whatever else you want to add to it is fine. First of all, I'd like to have a conversation with you offline on that so I can find out specifically what firms you're referring to, because the goals are on their entire contract. Okay, and as you've heard from Wayne, it's a $0 and Renee, a $0 contract, and then work authorizations are generated against that contract. The goals are on each work authorization. However, the goals are on the entire contract. So conceivably, contractor A may, for some reason, and they have to justify that reason to one of my staff, as to why on work authorization number 1, they could not meet their MWBE goal. But again, the goal is on the entire contract. If we see a prime contractor, for whatever reason, not meeting their MWBE goal consistently, then we have to have a different kind of conversation. Let me be frank, okay? Because, and that includes maybe not even awarding any additional work authorizations to that prime job contractor for not meeting their MWBE or SDVOB goals. So that's how we handle that. Now, again, as Wayne mentioned, there is a PLA. The PLA is only in the 5 boroughs, okay, of New York City. And that PLA does have inclusive opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses. So what do I mean? What you were told was that if a prime says I'm union and that you as a non-union firm would have to sign, and I don't want to get technical here, but I'll keep it on a high level, a letter of assent is what they were referring to, which basically simply says you're not going to become a union firm. It says that you are going to abide by the provisions of the PLA. And for your job contracts or for job contracts, then we've negotiated a PLA which is inclusive of MWBE firms. So again, depending upon where the work is, depending upon what the scope of work is, then if you're a non-union, MWBE, SDVOB, or even a non-MWBE, you can participate utilizing your own workforce on the project, but again, you would have to abide by the PLA. And for your purposes, the PLA is on Dasney.org, which explains exactly what are the provisions, what are the bring along clauses, and all the rest. So I would ask you to, you can reach out to me. It's mplay@dasney.org. And I would be more than happy to have a separate conversation.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Just a point on the barking dogs, on the PLA, is, in many cases, people either unintentionally or intentionally misunderstand the requirements. The PLA does not require only union contractors and does not require a non-union contractor to become a union contractor in order to work on the project. Dasney's PLA is superior, and it says so in the executor, it's superior to the collective bargaining agreements. So it allows for union and non-union firms to work on the same project. Everyone simply has to agree to abide by the terms and conditions of the PLA. They do that by signing what Mike said, a letter of assent. So it's just like with a contract, there are forms you sign. It's another one pager that you sign the document that you will abide by the terms and conditions of Dasney's PLA. There are lots of PLAs out there, and you may have worked with other PLAs. Don't confuse other agencies' PLA or other project PLA with Dasney's PLA. It's very specific to Dazny.
Thank you for the feedback.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I think that's it for the questions.
I'm sorry, can I ask one? This isn't exactly about job order contracting, but since I have you all here, you might be able to help clarify. I've been invited to bid as a prime contractor, general contractor, and these are through agencies, for example, Catholic Family Charities, and it's Dazny funded, but again, it's through a different agency. A lot of times there are requirements. However, it has varied from agency to agency, whether I receive the bid results. So obviously I'm a small company, I'm a certified WBE. We put a lot of time into these bids. And like I said, sometimes we get bid results, sometimes we don't. So everyone is trying very hard, and I know that there's good faith efforts out there. It's difficult for me to determine if they went with low bidder, if that low bidder, met those goals, or they're just applying for waivers. And, again, that's kind of a sticky point for me. It's hard for me to accept that, that I can't get bid results. Is there anything Dazny could do about that? Or is there something I don't know that I could be utilizing when I talk to these architects, engineers, agencies who don't want to release these bid results to me? Any feedback on that?
The only thing I could say is that Dasney, among our cadre of clients, there are non-for-profits that we work for, in which we only provide a project manager or construction phase services to. And not to get confusing, but it typically does not include MWBE utilization as part of that contract. So in other words, if Catholic Charities is utilizing Dazny, there may be a PM that might be involved, but that's it. There's no Wayne Benjamin, there's no Michael Clay, there's no opportunity programs involved. And also, it might involve Dazny providing funding only for that non-for-profit, because Dazny through statute is allowed to participate by providing funding to certain non-for-profits. So it may be one of those two relationships. I would say this, if you could email me what specific, and it's mclay@dasney.org, what specific clients or agencies you're talking about, I can inquire internally if Dazny is providing services to those clients, and that might be a way. But the reason you don't see the bid results on our website, as we've been touting for the past hour plus, is because we're not bidding those projects. The client is bidding those projects, and they're
Right.
utilizing Dazny services. So
Yeah, and there's like a Dazny PM, like you said, I think it has funding on it, but they're, again, it's through a different agency. It's just, there's no consistency, like, Villa of Hope, they gave us the bid results, but then, and again, I don't even know if it's coming from the architect or who's deciding that they won't release bid results. So I was just wondering if, the Dazny rep or, the PM on the project would at least be able to give us feedback, again, because they're very time intensive. And so, yeah, I kind of figured, but I just didn't know if there was any standard across the board for that funding, but I will send an email.
In some cases, Dasney may only be providing certain services, but if the nonprofit is receiving, let's say, a grant from the state agency that is providing the grant may have requirements. And so you'd want to reach out not to Dasney, but to the funding source, find out what its requirements are.
All right. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Do we have anything else?
No, we have, I'm so glad I attended this meeting. There's always so much to learn. Appreciate all the wisdom and enlightenment. So maybe that's a good place to wrap.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.